Hey guys, PW here, and we're back out in the garage. In this video, we're going to be installing the fuel system on our 55 Chevy Gasser. We chose a mechanical pump. We're at 500 horsepower, so we're going to go with that. We don't really need, I have a quick fuel up there, but it's way overrated for what we have at 500 horsepower. So I chose this. It's 80 gallons per hour, and I think the output on it, they said, was like 6 pounds of pressure coming out, which is plenty to feed our beast. All right, we decided to go with 6AN hose, which again, it's really close on inside diameter of 6AN is 3/8. The inlet and outlet on our pump is a 1/4 inch NTP, which is almost 3/8 ID. All right, so we're going to be okay. It's just enough. We're not going to be starving it. It's just what we need to feed our engine without going overboard. All right. The first thing I want to do is tell you these directions for the pump. They weren't helpful at all. Whenever it said to hook up the lines, it said, okay, just hook up the lines the way the old one to come out. Well, this is a fresh build. So I called Speedway up because that's where I got the pump. And I'm like, well, the inlet is pretty self-explanatory. When I push in on the plunger really hard, I can put my thumb against the inlet and it will suck. So I know that's the suction side. But this also came with a return that we're not going to use. We don't need it. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I'm like, okay, so which one's the outlet and which one's the return? The guy was like, well, they're both outlets should be the same. And I'm like, I don't know. So he went and checked, and sure enough, it's not the same. The outlet is 45 degrees from the inlet, which is the one that's pointing straight forward. So we're going to just put a cap in the center one, which would be the return. Now, the return for mechanical pumps, you know, a lot of people have different opinions whenever you're using carbureted. Do you need it? No, not really. But if we start to experience vapor lock or something like that where the fuel's sitting too long in the line, well then maybe, because the fuel will begin to vaporize before it even goes in, and that causes a whole nother set of problems. And then in that case, at least from what I read, because I'm no expert, that's when you would want to think about putting a return on. But it doesn't appear as though we're going to need one. All right, so I chose my fittings carefully for this job. We'll go through them as I use them. All right, so I looked at the front, and on the front where we're coming out for the outlet, I wanted a 90 with a NTP 1/4 inch to a 6AN line. All right, and like I said, when I'm putting it up in there, it'll put it so the line goes straight up. All right. Some of these fittings come with their own Teflon tape. We got a roll to use up before we open that one. We might just stick that one in our drawer. It's nice to get free stuff. Not that it's free. You guys know you end up paying for everything, but you know, we're not going to open a new one until we use up the old one we already have. All right. So we'll get this put on there, and then we're going to head over to the motor, and I'll bring you over there in a minute. I have a straight for the inlet. See you in a second. Real quick, small snafu right off the bat. Whenever I put my pre-ordered 90 where it goes, it was too tight against the pump body for the nut on the hose. So luckily when I ordered the straight, I got 2 just in case. So I'll have to use a 90 hose end instead of just the 90. All right, let's get over there. All right, guys. Well, first thing we want to do is put the rod up in there. They're on, what are they, 5 3/4 by 1/2 inch diameter pump rods. You could put a little bit of grease or petroleum jelly, or I guess you could use what do they got, that assembly lube if that's what you have, I think. But we happen to have a little bit of Vaseline petroleum jelly, so that's what I'm just going to use, just to shove the rod up into this plug hole. All right, push her up in there. Let's see if I can get it up in there any higher. All right, the rod is in there. Now we're ready to put the pump in. You can put a little bit of Permatex on the engine block and put your gasket there, or you could use the gasket on the put it on the pump itself. I don't like to use too much Permatex unless I have to, so I just put a little bit of grease just to hold that on as well, just a couple dabs. But hey, to each their own. You can put a little Permatex on there, and then you'll be scraping it off when you change your pump someday, I guess. I don't know. The gasket should crush and do the job. All right, now the biggest thing we're going to battle here is we don't know where the cam lobe location is that operates the rod, so we may have to push the pump in a little bit to get it to see against there. As you can see, it's going to be a bit of a bear. All right, our pump's really tight. Sorry about the strobe in here. I think my lights are not really that great. We're having a little trouble with the location of the rod, which is no big deal. I'm going to try turning the engine a little bit to put it in a little more user-friendly area. So it'll be a little easier to install our pump. I think. I feel like we're about as high as it's going to go right there. Might be starting to come back now. So let's try to put our pump in now. Hopefully it'll be a little easier. All right. Gasket. Like I say, you can use Permatex. I just like to hold them in place with a little bit of goop, and it'll be fine. Like I said, each their own. It would be helpful if I put it the right way, wouldn't it? Alright. Now hopefully this should slide up in there. It's still, that's way better. See that? A little extra effort. And all right, there it is, guys. That's good. Like I said, you know, moving the motor was the easiest way to do it, you know. That way you don't have to force the pump arm in, and they're tight, especially this brand new pump. But you know, it was pretty easy with my end because, well, I've been moving the engine once a month, so it's not in the exact same spot. That's why I already had the socket on the grandpa ratchet. All right, let me get the wrench and finish these off. All right, and once I finish these off, we'll put the plug back in. There's not much oil supposed to get down in these anyway. That's why I don't over concern myself with the gasket. It's a paper gasket, it'll crush. All right. I like these with the balls on the end. That way you can be a little off the angle. I just get me a little wrench and cheat them. These bolts, fuel pump bolts, you guys know usually they're 3/8, 16, but they come with 7/16 heads and are notorious for rounding off. I always choose these socket head ones because they don't seem to strip out the way the other ones do, because it's different bolt heads because of the tight proximity of the pumps. Then my other light just died, guys. Sorry, I brought over the one drop pump, or excuse me, the one drop light. So I don't know how well you can see right now. I'm gonna have to go charge these up in a second. There we go. All right, so there, our pump is in. I got the plug here. If you guys can see it, here's the plug. I'm gonna put the plug back in the hole and go charge these lights up. All right, you're not missing a thing. All right, guys, well, I guess we'll start at the back of the car. No big deal. Now that we have a place to send our fuel line, our 5/16 ID fuel line. All right, we got these reducers right here that go from 10 AN to our 6 AN. We're gonna put one on for our vent area over here. All right, get that one on there, get that out of the way. Now, I'm not gonna super tighten that one up yet. I also bought one of these rollover vents for like at the track. They like to see these. I guess they're required. I think they are anyway. They're just a little check valve. They got a little ball in there. So when you're up like this, there's enough vent to get through. And when you're not, if the car rolls over on its lid, the little ball will come up and shut it off. So we're gonna put a 90 here and run it through the trunk. I'm waiting for, I bought a little fuel filter with a 6AN end on it. It's not here yet, so we'll come back to this. I want to use the hose to get to the front of the car first, because I do have a cheaper 5/16 hose for the vent if need be. I'll try to use this, but only if we have enough. All right, so now we want to get our outlet. I was looking at it a couple different ways. I decided to use the left-hand side. I don't know what it is when you guys are upside down, but I'm using the left-hand side to put this on. All right, so let's get that on there. Let me get a wrench for that size. Hang on one second. All right, guys, well, I got a wrench to tighten up on this. I was looking at it, what footage you guys are seeing, and it looks like the right-hand side on for you, but trust me, it's the left-hand side. You guys are upside down. I also misspoke whenever I was talking about this fuel vent check valve. Whenever I come out, I said fuel filter. I meant air filter for the fuel vent. So it's not getting a fuel filter, it's getting an air filter for the fuel vent that's coming in the mail. It should be here in the next few days. All right, so our next move is we take our hose end and we want to just stick it on here. It is kind of tight, so we got that happening for us. But it does fit. All right, so we're going to put that on there, and then we're just going to kind of eyeball where it's going to come through, and it looks like right there. I was like playing around with the drill bit, and because it's a step bit, it's on an angle, so I'm just going to end up dancing all around and scratching up our nice Raptor-liner. So I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go from the bottom, and I'm going to come through and drill a hole. And as you guys can see, I have the tape to know when to stop, and I have a rubber grommet that we're going to put on the hose after we get it through. All right, so let me get that drilled out real quick. All right, real quick, we drilled the hole, and we put a rubber grommet to protect the hose from the sheet metal. All right, our next move is we're going to put the hose end on. All right, guys, well, I just went back and looked at the footage when I was putting the hose end on this one, and I didn't realize it was out of the picture. I had the camera mounted above us on the trunk, and it must have moved a little bit. My apologies. So I will do one more of these hose ends on camera before the video's through. Okay, guys, well, we're underneath the car, and I put a piece of tape on the hose because I feel like that's where I want to make a cut, because I want to add this inline fuel filter. It's a screened one by Earl. All right, it's 10 ANNs that I reduced down to our 6. Oh, it's nice and big and it's screened. I really like these ones because you can take them apart and clean the screens out at the end of every season or whatever. So I like this, and I feel like if I put it right here, it's out of everything's way. And so we're gonna cut our line here, and we'll put an end on the hose together. I got my grinder sitting here to cut the hose. It'll be off screen, but we'll just cut it real quick, and then we'll come back up and we'll put one of these hose ends on together, okay? All right, made a nice clean cut. Let's take our tape off of there. All right, guys, well, the kit comes with this vinyl tape. Now, when I used to do hydraulic fittings back at my old job, I didn't have to do this, and they were like very similar to this. I'm sure a lot of you seen them, but this kit didn't have any directions, but it came with vinyl tape, so I assume they wanted a wrap on there to keep the fuzzies in. So I put a wrap on there, and now we're going to put our end on. Hang on a second. All right, so you would turn the hose clockwise, but since we're going to hold the hose steady, we turn the fitting counterclockwise, and I always turn it until it bottoms out inside of the fitting, and you'll be able to look down in the fitting and see that it's locked in. take a look with a flashlight down inside, make sure we're all the way flush. It sure looks like we're all the way flush. I don't know if you guys can see down in there, but we're flush with the bottom of the fitting. Now this right here, I put a little tiny bit of oil on the end, just a touch. All right, you can see how the fitting's tapered. It'll start into the hose on its own, and then the threads will grab. And as the threads grab and you turn it in, you can initially do it by hand, and then it starts to get tighter and tighter, and that's where your compression comes from. And we're good and started in there. Now we could just take our wrenches and we can turn this all the way down, and the fitting will be set. And you can do these and undo them as need be. You know, I don't recommend, but I've reused these on hydraulic units in a pinch before, and it's not a big deal. All right. But they were steel fittings, don't get me wrong, but the exact same design. Forget what these are called, PEFC or something, I don't know. I'm sure somebody out there will put it in comments, but there might be a guy or two that never did this, but there you go. And that's really all there is to it. It's on there, and that's all the way down. All right, last forever. Well, one should hope it should last forever. You can see there, and I can pull on that. That's really on there, so we're happy with that. Then I want to take my fitting and I want to screw it into my filter, and we'll tighten that down. All right. All right, so now we want to put that right here, and we want to mount it right there. All right, so now I'll be able to see the aeroflow. Okay, so now we want to mount this to the frame right here, and you guys can see I got a nice long loop. You don't want to make a sharp bend with the hose. All right, so it's nice and it's a sweeping move. Now let me just lay this down for a second. I got these Russell clamps with rubber inserts to mount it to the frame. All right, so we'll be able to pop this right on the hose right here like so, squeeze her down, and we're going to mount it right there. All right, that's going to be good right there. So what I got was one of these nut riveter tools. I just got it. We're going to use 1/4 20 ends. I've never used this before. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to do this together, okay? So I read the directions. All right, the kit that I bought is called Nex-Tac, and I got it off of Amazon, and it comes with a bunch of different mandrels, both metric and a few American ones. I happen to have some 1/4 20s here, so that's the only reason I chose the 1/4 20. But one thing I did not check before I come on camera, because I'm not perfect, is that will the 1/4 20 bolt fit through these clamp holes that I got. That's the only snafu I'm not 100% on, and they do fit through there, so we're going to be okay with that. All right, now what I'm going to do is drill with our step bit that they gave us, okay? And you'll see I have a piece of tape on it. There's numbers on here, and it said for the 1/4 20 riveting nut that I want to go to number 9. So, okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to number 9. So, let me put the hose back up for a second. We'll kind of eyeball. It ain't got to be perfect. This isn't brain science here, but I just get a good idea where I want the hole, and I got a good idea that we want it right there, and that's going to be fine. Let me slip my safety glasses down, and let's drill a hole. All right, we drilled the hole to number 9. Just lost lighting. Sorry about that. Plug that back in. It's like I'm trying to maintain the camera, the lighting, and the tools all at the same time, so this may not be the greatest footage in the world, but it's what I can do right now. All right, so now we want to take our rivet gun. All right, we screw the, I put the mandrel on, and there's directions that come with it to tell you how to put the mandrel on. And then they say screw the nut down, but leave, they say 1 millimeter. Now, I'm not good with metric, but you leave a gap, all right, between the nut and the end. You don't want to bury this nut. We just want to get it in there so that we'll be able to compress our trigger and just until we can distort the nut. So we put the nut in there, and then we just squeeze it down. All right, and that should be good. And now you just take and unscrew it right here at the back of the tool until it comes out. And that should be good and tight, and I'll be darned, it is. That is really tight. Now listen, so now we want to just take our thing right there. See if I can get this to screw in. All right, got a tool here for that as well. Looks like I'll be able to put another rivet on the other side there. I think what I'll do is let me bring this, loosen that up, and I'll tighten that right there. All right, so there we go. That is really cool. All right, that is secured. Now let me bring the camera over and show you guys. It's a nice sweeping, there's nothing crazy there, and that's really secured. All right, so now I need to put another fitting on the other end of the hose, and we'll send it forward. I guess it's best to tell you guys at this time, let me take the camera down off and show you. I had built brackets. I made these outriggers, and I've been on the fence whether I want to use them or not. These brackets, you can see it holds the brake line, and it'll also hold the fuel line. And the only reason I did that is to try to keep things really neat and tidy, because you know the both sides of the frame has step outs, like for the body mounts and stuff like that, so you don't have to go up, around, and all this other things. So we're going to use those. Okay, they're nice and neat, they're really tight. So I'll put the rivet nuts on those, and we'll run the hose straight on down, and it'll be really neat and tidy. And at the front and the back, like we're back here at the back, we're right to the frame. And when we get to the front past the transmission mount, I got to make one more of those riggers. I had 3. I took one off when I put the transmission mount on, and I can't find it. So I got to make one more, one more of those, and I'll make it tomorrow. But that's where the hose is going to run. Okay, so that's where I'm going to leave it for tonight. I'm just going to lay the hose out, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. All right, guys, fast forward a little bit. I put one of those Russell clamps on our frame up there, and then jumped over here to those outriggers I showed you. And you see how it nice and neat. It keeps the line nice and straight all the way down through, and keeps it away from the body mounts and stuff. A nice straight run. We're going to do the same thing with our brake line, as you can see. All right. And then when I got to this point here, all right, I had some black hose. I split a small piece and put it over top of our other hose, just to protect it from chamfering if it vibrates or something. It's got a nice big split on the top. We're holding it with some wire ties. All right, then I put one of those rivet nuts here, but I found you can screw in from the top, which is cool, because I wanted to put it on top to prevent the line from going underneath and sucking up tight against our transmission mount. So it's good and secure. And then we just went from here, and we jumped it right back onto the frame. And now we'll go up top. I'll show you what I did up top. All right, we come back up top. We put one more of those Russell fittings right here. It was really tough to drill there, and the step bit that came with that kit, it wasn't a very good bit, and it got messed up. So I tried using one of the step bits I had, ended up drilling the hole too big, had to weld it shut and re-drill it again. I ended up using a U size drill bit. I come to find out was good for that size. So I suggest if you get one of those kits, you figure out the sizes you need, you know, use a set of calipers to measure the rivets, because that's what I'm going to do, because that step bit, it got crazy, and when it went through one too many, and it was too big and I had to weld it shut. The profanity that came out of my mouth, I was ashamed of. I mean, it wasn't funny. It was funny afterwards, but at the time it was not very funny. So, all right, so then I just ran it right over. I ran a straight fitting in here to our pump, and I used the 90 to come out here. I'm not touching anything through here. I left enough hose where there's some flexibility there, and I tied it into this. Now this is, you know, colorful and all that. It's not really my first choice. Maybe I take it off and paint it later, I don't know. But it came with the engine, and it's 8 AN. So I just had to get a 8 AN to 6 AN fitting right here, okay? So it should be fine. It shouldn't hurt anything. If it does, we'll make a change, but that's one of them things. Why buy it? I have it. It should be fine. So we're gonna try it out. I can't see how it could be a problem. All right, but if it is, we'll fix it. All right, guys, well, that's what I got for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. If you haven't yet, consider subscribing to our channel. We're having a lot of fun here, and it'd be fun if you come along for the ride. All right, so until next time, take care, everybody.